But then people are waiting there, to be engaged. We need to really go out there to engage them and begin to break down the barriers.
It comes back again to the people when we talk about the issues like this. Recall the word or the statement, sacred cows. And over the years, we have also seen efforts by some of these agencies in prosecuting or bringing some of these alleged corrupt persons to book. And we have also seen how the matter ended. Some are under the carpet. Some didn't get the required or the necessary justice that the populace would have loved to see. Doesn't this really wane the kind of confidence that the people have with such agencies?
It's because we are not adopting systemic approaches to dealing with this issue. And EFCC will arrest somebody, do their best in investigation, and charge the person to court. Prior to the new Criminal Justice Administration Act, the defense or the defendant will go and hire the best lawyers in the book. The lawyers will go and file 1,001 frivolous petitions, and until those petitions are heard and exhausted, there is nothing more the EFCC can do. So while we are trying to empower the EFCC, we should also realize that they are just a node in a system that other nodes need to play their own role for them to be seen as being effective. And the sooner government start realizing that and start acting in that direction, which I believe is what they are trying to do with the inauguration of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Corruption, which, by the way, my organization, the Ford Foundation, together with MacArthur Foundation and Open Society Foundation, set up a $5 million anti-corruption and criminal justice reform fund to support that work. And we need to see that committee do their work and for the government to act on the recommendations that they are coming up with.
You know, I go back again to the personnel driving this, and staying above board is very key here. And again, we'll also look at remuneration of these people, so that talk of inducement, talk of petitions against some of these people doesn't really come up, because the frequency that we're getting to see some of these now should also make cause some kind of concern for the country, to the extent that we should also be talking and asking about remuneration and insurance scheme for these men and women working in such agencies. How best have we been able to streamline that to the extent that when they're on their beat, they know that every other aspect of their life is well catered for?
The much that has been done that I know of is the ₦500,000 insurance, which those who die in line of duty get, and some efforts to increase their salary. I think it's hovering around 30 or 40,000 now, but that is not much. What you need, because what differentiates our own situation with perhaps other countries that have gotten it right, is that it's not that people are not tempted to corruptly enrich themselves, but when they look at the cost, not just in terms of punishment, but what they are going to lose. In some countries, once you are a sworn officer, you get a housing loan or even an accommodation. You get a scholarship for your children. You go for in-service training from time to time, and the package automatically makes you a middle-class person. So when somebody comes to your office to offer some money, and you place it in one hand and place what you're going to lose in the other hand, reason takes over.
We don't seem to be focusing on all of those.
No, those are actually the heavy lifting that needs to be done. So it's all exciting to fire people and hire new ones, but the real heavy lifting needs to be done, and it requires a lot of resources.
But some people will say that it will seem is across board. I mean, even in the civil service, where people are hoping that civil servants will do their job as they should, people will say, well, you can see them passing files of millions, and how much exactly is their take-home pay? Does it take them home in the first instance?
That's why corruption is everywhere. It's not just in the police or the anti-corruption agencies, because people's take-home pay do not really take them home. And until that starts happening.
But politicians take on pay, it's taking them
precisely
beyond their homes.
And some people will say that, how easy is that going to be, considering where we are right now financially as a country?
But there's a way of, actually doing, because remember, at the time when Nigeria was actually doing that, because there was also a time this country was working, we didn't have the kind of income we have now. The oil boom of the 1970s that people talked about, the highest was $40. But in this country, in the past couple of years, it went over $100.
$40 compared with the naira we had then was definitely something very substantial.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that we have actually earned more now than we've ever earned in our history. But because of the leakages, because of all the overhead, that we pile upon ourselves each time we create new states, new local government, new commissions, new agencies, overhead is just taking everything. At the time, under the previous government, Nigeria was spending over 80% of its income on recurrent expenditure. How can you build a society and grow an economy with that kind of framework?
How do you think, or do you think that all of what the government seems to be doing today about ensuring that we fight corruption, how successful can we be if we don't deal with the issues of politicking in terms of tribalism, nepotism? Can we go far?
But I think we've actually, with the last election, we've made some progress. We've achieved interparty alternation of power, which is a democratic milestone, which is making parties realize that if you do not serve the people, you can actually be voted out, even if you are incumbent at the presidential level. And building on that, the process also produced
are we building on that? You think we are?
We are, but it's this engagement of the people. The government needs to be out there. Explain, this is a democracy. You need to engage the people. You need to debate every issue. Don't let anybody get away with any claim.
That's what some people say.
That is false.
How would you suggest? Sorry, Chamberlain. How would you suggest that happens? It would seem that government after government seems at a loss on how to actually engage the people.
I remember between 1986 and 88, under incidentally a military government, Babangida, we had this National Political Bureau. When we debated about whether we should take IMF loan, whether the issue of ideology, should we go capitalism, socialism, or mixed economy, they went, Professor Emeawa, professor, he's dead now, from Edo State, the government engaged all the heads in this country. They went around the country, around the campuses, debated all these issues. At the end of the day, Nigeria decided not to take the loan, but to implement structural adjustment program, which actually was working before Babangida gambled into politics. Because I remember, as a student in University of Nigeria, Nsukka, my professor got the contract to do a study on the impact of SAP on manufacture and industrial production in the Southeast, because I was in UNN. And I went around all the Southeastern states and saw the new things people were doing. People were designing a machine to crush palm kernel. People were designing machine in Aba to process cassava, and all those were picking up. So we have had it also MAMSA under Jerry Ghana. There was no part of this country that they didn't go and engage all these narrow views. Let's bring it to the public space. It's when you try to sit back and then order Nigerians that they do not respond.
That is why we said that we asked the question about NOA, because we put MAMSA and NOA side by side. It's almost the same thing, NOA and MAMSA set out for. But you could also remember MAMSA now, but on the face of it, what can you remember about NOA in terms of driving policy, engaging the people, and debating some of these things?
It's also the leadership. I remember that NOA was at the time headed by a political sciences professor, Amotrazi, from the UN. And in fact, the chairman of an organization I served, CLEAN, Professor Alemika, was their state coordinator in Kogi State. So with the quality of that leadership, they engaged the people. These are people who didn't take those appointments because they wanted the money.
Were they being properly funded?
They were not properly funded as such, but with the little resources they had, they were able to engage. Because what does it take to actually engage the people? If you are out there to serve, you will get people who will give you free haul to say, today we are going to debate this or that policy. Come to whether it's Museum Center or what's the hotel here, airport hotel, and you engage the management, you can get free public spaces to engage
spoken
the people.
to NOA about some of this and why they don't seem, or why people think they're not functioning. And I said, look, well, we're not funded. And many of the promos, they say, look, they literally have got to just go cap in hand to media houses, asking them to play, of which many of them don't even respond. But maybe we'll get them to respond and talk about it since themselves about it. But
with social media these days, media barriers have been broken. You just take youngsters, many of them are looking for job, put them in a room, they will create tweet me, tweet storm, Facebook this, and it will be all over the place, which is what people who are engaged in some of these narrow campaigns are actually using more against the government. They're much more effective in working the social media.
The other part of it is that you say there has to be a lot more engagement by government agencies with the people.
With the people.
And then perhaps beyond that engagement, they also need to be seen to be listening to the people.
Precisely,
as well.
Precisely. It's not just engaging people to brainstorm, but what happens after. People need to see what steps you have taken. And also the challenges you have, be upfront in communicating with the people. You never know who will volunteer to solve it.
Well, so much already said. Thank you very much indeed, Innocent Chukwuma of the Full Foundation. We'll be back in a moment, and yeah, one more lap. Don't go away.